Okay, so welcome back to the final part of this 2D transformation section within our CSS series. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to look at two more things that we can do with transformations. The first one is another function, which is scale, which isn't that interesting but can be useful, and I'll show you a reason how it can be useful. And also multiple transformations as well. Now, multiple transformations is obviously a lot more useful. You may want to go ahead and apply 2 or 3 different transformations to a particular element, and of course you can do that using 2D transformations. So first of all, let's go ahead and get rid of skew, which we previously looked at. Let's go ahead and apply the scale function. Now, scale can take an x and y value, and oddly these are between 0 and 1, so there's no percentage using or pixel using or anything like that. It's between 0 and 1. So for example, if I wanted to scale this 0, you can guess what's going to happen. It's going to disappear. If I was to scale this 1, you'd imagine that at 100% of the element size, so its original size. So it's almost like if you were using opacity in CSS. So if I was to choose 0.5, it doesn't take a genius to guess that it would just halve the size of it. Now, you may be thinking at this point, well, how is this useful? Well, you can automatically see why this is useful. It's decreased the appearance of it, but we've got the font size in the middle decreased as well, and relative to how it should be. So for example, if we wanted a header that's full size and then we wanted a header that was half size, we could do that, and we wouldn't have to go ahead and add more CSS to adjust the font size of the object or anything like that. So we can use this transformation scale to reduce that. It's very rare that you would need this because you would tend to style headers differently, and I guess the extra markup wouldn't matter, but it is a useful property, and we can we have got this control over it. Obviously we could specify for example 0.3, and then we could say 0.35, which would make it slightly bigger. So we can, we've got more granular control over this than you think. You might think that using pixels is more control, but really that doesn't make sense because we need to be able to say, well, I want it to be half the object size. Now, obviously, we can supply multiple values. So, for example, if I wanted the width of it to be the half and the height to be the original length, we can do this. So we've transformed it in this way as well, which again could be useful. Could be useful if you wanted to have that kind of control over elements, but really scale is relatively straightforward. We just pass an x and a y value through to that and it will scale it as required. So now let's go ahead and look at multiple transformations. Now this isn't complicated. It's essentially just passing lots of different functions under the WebKit transform or under the Moz transform or transform property. We don't use a comma separated list of values. We just pop them after one another. So let's go ahead and keep this scale in here. We'll go over here and we'll apply another transformation. So let's go ahead and also rotate this, and we'll go ahead and rotate it 20 degrees. Then let's go and skew this by 10 degrees. So we've applied 3 different options or 3 different functions. Remember, we're not using comma separated values, so don't use commas, just literally plonk them one after another. Go ahead and refresh and check that out. We have skewed it, we've rotated it, and we have reduced the size of it as well. And again, we are free to sort of play around with this in the browser. We can do what we want with this. We can change this as appropriate, and it's pretty much relatively straightforward. Now there's something about scale that I haven't actually thought about. The value does not run between 0 and 1. What I meant to say was the size of the image is 1, which is the maximum, which is 100% of the element size. But we obviously can double the element in size as we can half it. So that might have been confusing, and I didn't really demonstrate that properly, but just by doing this, it's reminded me that of course we can double an image, multiply an image by a certain amount of times as well. So that's essentially it for 2D transformations. They're relatively straightforward. At the time of recording, still, we've still got a bit of problem where we have to, use the vendor prefixing, but go ahead, play around with it, use it where it's supported, but again, don't rely on it because it may not be available in some browsers. So that's 2D transformations in CSS.